Welcome to the Michigan Travel Show, a kaleidoscope of stories about the people, places, and events that shape our great state.
We're at the perfect Quilters retreat on a perfect day in Hillman, Michigan at Thunder Bay Resort. And with us is Mark Lipinski, who's the star of the show this week at the Perfect Quilters Retreat. Mark, you kind of have a quilting empire as part of an astonishingly diverse career. Tell us a little bit about how you got started quilting.
Well, I got started after I adopted my son, and he was an ill baby. So I took off work for a year. I stayed home. I watched Eleanor Burns on television, and I became hooked. I thought if she could do it, I could do it, and I did it. So I owe my career to Eleanor Burns, and that's really how I started. It was no accident. I mean, well, I guess it was an accident. I have a mother who can't sew. I have a grandmother who can't sew, and they still aren't quite sure what I do exactly or why I need so many quilts and so much fabric. But that's really their issue. I am just moving along at my own pace. When my son turned 17, I decided to take off work and to retire as a TV producer, and got very bored. And when my partner Jeff said, well, why don't you do something with quilting, we kind of put our heads together and we came up with a magazine, which was successful. And then we put together a fabric line, which was successful. And now I'm doing Quilt Out Loud, as you could see, for QNNTV.com, another success. So it just kind of all one thing just blossomed into another.
Now, this QNN TV show that you're doing, tell us a little bit about that. Some of us haven't gotten around to seeing it yet.
Well, the show Quilt Out Loud is really, again, not a traditional, just like Quilters Home is not a traditional quilting magazine. It's really a magazine for quilters, a lifestyle magazine with a lot of humor and a lot of personal stories, that kind of thing. Quilt Out Loud is very similar. It is, we do some cooking, we do some gardening, we do some quilting, we do a lot of talking, and it's really an empowering show for quilters, but it has a quilting undercurrent, but it really is about being a better you.
Well, the word empowering really strikes me as what you've been doing at the retreat this week. I see people who come in a little concerned that they're not going to be able to keep up, and their confidence is growing, and you've had a lot to do with that. You bring in technique and you bring in design. How did you learn how to do that?
That was an accident, and that was a real accident. You know, when you don't know what you're doing, you start pulling at straws. So when I first started designing these mystery quilts or just any quilt, I had in mind what the end result would be. But then as I started teaching it, I realized that there was so much more to do with it, and I thought it would be kind of fun to bring those kind of other elements into it. So when I teach a class, it's never about what kind of quilt you end up with, or that everybody in the class ends up with the same quilt. Chances are everybody in the class will end up with a different quilt, as you have seen. And so you either learn how to manipulate blocks, or you learn how to manipulate settings. And we're in this because we have I think all of us, I think all of humanity is born with a creative gene. And it's just whether you decide to nurture it or not, or whether to listen to it. And I think that as quilters, people who like fabric and people who like color, which is really why we get into it in the first place, whether we're really good quilters or not, and I'm just an average piecer myself, but it's a way to let people kind of explode out of that, get rid of that kind of I have to do a pattern, I follow somebody else's thing, and give them the courage and the self-confidence to kind of play with their own creative muse. And that's what I really like to do. That's what what all my classes are about. And it gives people the permission to both forge ahead with their own creativity and also to fail in a very safe environment, and where we can kind of rework and replay and rewrite what their creative vision was, and help them move on to the next step. So then when they leave here and they leave classes with me, I like to think that they go back to their magazines and their books and their free internet patterns and all those kind of things, but they don't look at the patterns and just take them at face value, but they have already learned how to manipulate those patterns to make it their own.
It's just kind of a starting place in a way.
Absolutely, but we're all creative spirits, and we all kind of need to grow from that. So that's what I teach.
Well, it's interesting to see how a craft, it's more than a craft, it's an art. Like quilting is bringing out people's creative instincts, and you're right, some people didn't think they had them, but one of the other things that was kind of interesting is you're telling people, don't save your quilts, use your quilts.
Well, of course. I mean, listen, I get skewered for this. I'm one of the few professionals who will say your quilts are just blankets. Now, many people say use them, but, you know, there are art quilts, and there are quilts that are really worthy of museum quality quilts. But, you know, when all is said and done, it's just fabric and thread, and you need to use them, you need to love them, you need to wear them out, you need to go buy more stuff. That's the bottom line. That's the beauty of quilting. If you're not using your quilts, then shame on you. Because what's going to happen is when you die, your daughter-in-law is going to sell them for $5 a pop before you're 6 feet under. And because nobody really cares about your quilt like you care about your quilt. So if you're saving them for some rainy day, give it up. Now, you know, even like for instance, and I love Paula Nadelstern. Paula Nadelstern is an icon. And her quilts that are now hanging in a museum in Manhattan, which were so stunning that it brought me to tears when I went to this show in Manhattan. Her quilts are worth something. They are pieces of art. But if you take her patterns and you do your own, it's just a Paula Nadelstern quilt that you've done. Use the damn thing. You know, her quilts are valuable. Your Paula Nadelstern quilt, not so valuable. So use it.
Yes, I agree. They're more valuable when you use them. I want to talk a little bit about Thunder Bay Resort.
Okay.
You've taught retreats and taught people how to quilt in several different kinds of settings. What makes this one different?
Well, you know, I've taught at retreats, and I have been to retreats, and I love Thunder Bay. As a matter of fact, this is the only place that I've actually gone twice, and now this will be my third one coming up. I think it is a sensational place. First of all, the people are nice. The accommodations are amazing. Listen, dudes, this is the best part. Every place people stay, there's double bedrooms, there are full kitchens, there are bathrooms, there are whirlpool tubs, there are beautiful, beautiful scenery from every window, and, you know, everybody gets drunk. I mean, they last night at my lecture, they were serving Jell-O shots. It was fabulous. You see, like 75 women, like putting their fingers in little shot glasses, trying to get yellow Jell-O out. It's just a fun, relaxed place where you could quilt 24 hours a day. You could really piece 24 hours a day. The quilt barn is open. It's beautiful accommodations. All your food is included in the package, as is your accommodations. It's an amazing place, and I love it. I love it. It's out in the middle of nowhere. You know, I did find a Walmart 20 miles away, which I love. But other than that, it's in the middle of nowhere. It's absolutely beautiful, and it really is a destination place. And if you haven't been to a retreat, this is the place to go. If you have been to a retreat and you've been disappointed, then you've been to the wrong retreat, and this is also the place to go. Listen, I don't get paid for this. I'm just telling you that I love it. I love it, I love it, and I will come back again.
Did you do the elk ride?
I did the elk ride last year, which is a horse-drawn carriage, and all of your classmates that you kind of bond with in the class get on these giant carriages, and they take you through the woods to an elk preserve where you're looking at these elk in the wilderness. I mean, these giant, like, cows with horns. And, I mean, they're huge. And it was amazing to me because I had never seen an elk before, not even in a zoo. And then they take you out to the middle of nowhere, again, in the middle of the woods, to this log cabin that is full of wood-burning stoves, and they serve you a gourmet meal made on the wood-burning stoves, from appetizer to dessert. It's fascinating, it's beautiful, it's fun, and there's wine tastings there, and everybody has a good time. There's a lot of laughing, a lot of camaraderie, and actually, when I came back this year, a lot of the people that were here last year with me came back. So, you know, that's a good recommendation right there.
Well, Mark, thank you very much for talking with us. It's just been a fun couple of days, and I know folks are waiting for you, so thank you very much.
Well, thank you, and come to Thunder Bay.